Šios dienos tema palies pagrindė vidinės grėsmės. Tai duomenų nutekėjimo, praradimo rizikas, naudotojų klaidas, neįprastą naudotojų veiklą ir taip pat darbo efektyvumo analizę. Tai vis dar retas ir neįprastas sprendimas Lietuvoje, tačiau saugumo prasme labai efektyvus. Šiandienos pranešėjas Ilai Sutam, mūsų partnerių Teramind viceprezidentas. Ilai šiandieną atsakys į klausimus, kaip COVID-19 epidemija paveikia darbuotojus, ką organizacijos turi stebėti ir nuo ko saugotis. Ir kaip Teramind sprendimas leidžia organizacijoms funkcionuoti geriau nei bet kada iki šiol. Kaip ir kiekvieno webinaro metu noriu informuoti, kad klausimus rašytumėte chat skiltyje, o jos atsakysime pristatymo pabaigoje. Eli, I have made a brief introduction and the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just start my webcam. Okay, are you guys able to see me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. So I'll start the conversation via the webcam. That way we can make it personal. And then from there, I'm going to share my screen and I'll walk you guys through the Teramind solution. So just a quick introduction for myself. My name is Eli Sutton, and I'm the VP of Global Operations at Teramind. I've been with Teramind since its inception back in 2014. So very knowledgeable on the product, and be very happy to show you exactly what it is we offer our customers. Now, Teramind has more than 2,500 customers around the globe. And we've been able to penetrate nearly every market that you can think of. So in the scope of, say, monitoring for productivity or monitoring for security, there's really no end to the type of industry that can derive benefit from a solution like Teramind. So we have customers in every industry you can possibly think of, which includes banking, automotive, financial, legal, e-commerce, government, both municipal and federal. So once again, any organization that has employees who work out of an endpoint can be a desktop, laptop, Windows server, terminal server, can of course derive benefit from the Teramind solution. Now, how this ties into the current situation that we find ourselves in with the pandemic. So even prior to the pandemic, Teramind was a global leader in the employee monitoring universe. Now, prior to the pandemic, I would say roughly 70% of our business was organizations who are monitoring for security. So to make sure users who had access to their sensitive data weren't manipulating that data, weren't utilizing them in a way that could cause damage to the organization, or somebody who just makes a critical mistake that causes that damage. Whereas the other 30% were monitoring for productivity, so to make sure that their users were being productive with company time. Now, since the pandemic started, it's essentially flipped on its tail. So now I would say roughly 70% of people who are initiating with us, talking about the product, are looking for a solution to monitor for productivity, and roughly the other 35% are monitoring for security. So once again, in the whole work from environment situation, the pandemic that we find ourselves with, many organizations are, of course, now working from home, like most notably like you and I. So when working from home, it's very hard to understand two things. Number one, whether or not that user who's working from home is being as productive as he possibly can, and we'll discuss exactly what that means. And on the security side of things, making sure that that user who's now working from home has the same kind of security controls on his endpoint that he would generally have when he's working out of an office. So traditionally, when you work out of an office environment, whether or not you're aware, there are some controls over there that prevent you from mishandling information. And now that you're working from home, essentially that security has gone out the window. So Teramind can assist in both the optimization of workforce productivity, as well as mitigating that insider threat. So what I'd like to do from here is share my screen with you. So just give me a moment, I'll get that set up. Sorry about that. So just to backtrack, so once again, Teramind offers solutions for both the optimization of workforce productivity as well as the mitigation of the insider threat. Now, we do this through solutions like session recording, reporting on user actions, policy enforcement, risk analysis, and OCR forensics, deployable both on cloud and on-premise. So it doesn't matter if they're a 5-user organization or a 5,000-user organization, Teramind has the tools and the deployment that can assist them in monitoring the employees. Now, typically we see that smaller organizations will lean towards a cloud infrastructure, whereas larger organizations will lean towards an on-premise deployment. So once again, we offer both and can definitely provide that service to any of your customers, regardless of what industry or what size they may be. So this is the Teramind dashboard for those of you who haven't seen it prior. You'll notice that the dashboard itself is very modernized, has a very clean and sleek look to it, very easy to navigate and derive benefit from, and hopefully I can show you that in the walkthrough today. So the first thing we'll take a look at is the session recording functionality. So you'll notice the first widget here is the online employees widget, which gives me some snippet information on the users who are currently live. Of course, you can change the look and feel of any of the dashboards. So this is just one of the configurations that we have that is very useful for a smaller organization. Larger organizations may find more benefit through something like the enterprise dashboard, which is, of course, broken down based on department as opposed to user. And, of course, all these widgets are fully customizable. So you can customize the main page of the Teramind dashboard, and you can also have as many widgets as you like. So again, the first thing we'll take a look at is the session recording functionality offered by Teramind. So on the right-hand side of this widget here, you have this video icon. Simply click on that, and it'll bring up a live video of that user so you can see exactly what may be going on now. So what we're viewing in this window panel here is a live representation of the user session. So exactly what we see, exactly what the user sees is exactly what we see in this panel over here. Now, of course, you have the ability to track back and view previously recorded sessions. So through the calendar icon here, you can track back and view any session that's notable based on your need or discovery. Now, with the cloud-hosted solution, you can track back to a maximum of 6 months to view video recorded sessions. And for the on-premise, you're essentially in full control of retention. So you can host the data for a week, a month, a year, or indefinitely. And then, of course, from there, you can view all of the recordings. Now, I can also manipulate the time and track back based on that. So, for example, if I want to track back an hour back, I can simply do that directly from here. And then it'll bring me back an hour. So it looks like this user in question has been idle for some time. So just as another example, I can track back to a different day and then view the recording directly from there. So here, just by going back a day, I see that the user started off his day by looking at his webmail. Now, of course, the use case for session recording is not to sit through countless hours of recording, as for the most part, that would get you nowhere, but to utilize this tool as a means to, say, view any of the reports that Teramind offers, and then based on the reporting criteria, view the recording of that user session. So as far as reports goes, you'll notice that Teramind has a wide variety of reports that you can utilize out of the box, which includes things like web pages and application usage, console commands, incoming and outgoing emails, including webmail activity, full file transfer activity, including any removable media devices like USB drives, that for online meetings, which of course is very relevant as of the current work from home situation we find ourselves in. So if users are utilizing things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, you have the ability to monitor that activity, instant messaging, social media, keystrokes, any online or offline searches conducted by the user, that for printed documents, screen snapshots, sessions, and network monitoring. Now, before I jump into the reports themselves, it's very important to note that any of the reporting or any of the monitoring features offered by Teramind are fully customizable, and you can be very specific as far as what should and should not be monitored. So, for example, you'll remember that when monitoring email, I mentioned that you also have the ability to monitor webmail. If that goes beyond the scope of what the customer is looking for in a monitoring solution, you can, of course, disable the ability to monitor webmail. So I can remove things like Yahoo, Gmail, or Outlook, and just focus on the internal email of the organization. With email monitoring, I can capture the email content. I can capture any attachments. Again, if that goes beyond the scope of what you're looking for in a monitoring solution, they can, of course, disable that or disable the features altogether. So, of course, you can be very specific as far as what the agent should and should not monitor, and all of that can be done directly from here. So we'll take a look at a couple of the reports. That way you can see the type of reporting that Teramind offers, and of course the benefit that can be derived by some of the reports, some of the unique features in each report. And then we'll take a look at some of the other solutions offered by Teramind. So first report we'll look at is for web pages and applications, which simply reports on any website or application utilized by the user at any point in time. On the top left-hand side of the report, you'll notice that we have some metrics based on productivity. So I'll show you exactly how this is being calculated in a moment. On the right-hand side, you have the ability to filter the report. So if we want to look at websites or applications alone, or jumble the report into both. So for this purpose, I'll just look at websites. We can build these reports based on individual employees, multiple employees, groups, departments, or company-wide. And we can very easily search for a particular website or application and then build a report based on that criteria. So as an example, if I want to build a report based on, say, YouTube, so you'll notice that YouTube is the top 3 website that's being consumed, that's consuming user time. So if I want to see exactly what's going on here, who's spending the most time on YouTube, what they may be viewing in YouTube, I have the ability to build a report based on that criteria. And then, of course, considering Teramind offers session recording as a base feature, you have the ability to view the recording directly from here. So, for example, on top here, this user is viewing YouTube for about 4 minutes and 40 seconds consecutively. So if I want to see exactly what he was viewing, I can open the recording and then view it in the same way that he was able to view that recording. So here is the video that he was viewing. So as we can see here, he's viewing something that seems to be productive, something that has to do with web development, and not somebody who's, say, misproperly using company time. If I had any reason to view this entire video, so not just what he was viewing during this duration, I can simply click over here, and it'll bring up that YouTube video directly from here, so I can view it in its entirety if I have any reason to delve a little bit deeper into that. So as you can see, this was the video that he was viewing. Now, if I aggregate the report, it'll provide me with the collective website and application usage for the users during this time frame. So again, you'll see that websites like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest all made the top 10 for the users for this specific time frame. So October 28th to November 31st, which of course I can manipulate. And then directly from here, I can classify any website or application as being productive or unproductive. So after hitting the classify icon, I can start to make selections. So here I can take, say, things like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and then I can classify them as being productive or unproductive. And then Teramind will, of course, self-calculate the time spent over here. And from there, I can take a look at, say, email reporting. So this will report on any incoming or outgoing emails, including webmail activity, for any specified period. Now, as mentioned, I have full control of exactly what the agent does with this information. So again, if monitoring webmail is not something I want to undertake, I can certainly disable the agent's ability to record that information. Now from here, as mentioned, I can view the recorded playback for all instances, all reported instances through any of the reports. I can view the screenshot during that time frame. So if I want to see exactly what the email itself looked like, I can simply click on this icon here, and then I can see the email in the same way. If there are any images in the email, I can also view those. And again, any attachments, I also have the ability to download directly to my endpoint. So for example, this one says sensitive file, content sensitive files. I can simply click on that. It'll immediately download to my PC, and then I can view it in the same way that the user has the ability to view it. Now from there, we can take a look at instant messaging. So many people are unaware that instant messaging can also be used on the security side of things. So while, of course, during the whole work from home scenario, instant messaging is a very good report to understand whether or not these users are utilizing particular instant messengers to communicate with other team members or somebody who may just be chatting away with friends and family, which is perfectly fine, of course, but as long as it's not being abused. So for example, at Teramind, we exclusively use the Telegram application for instant messaging. So if, for example, we find that a particular user is sitting on WhatsApp, I use WhatsApp a lot, but mostly to communicate with family and friends. So if, for example, I'm being monitored, and you'll note that a lot of my instant messaging usage is WhatsApp, then you can probably derive that if I sat on WhatsApp for 2 hours, I was probably doing so chatting away with family and friends. So this gives you an idea of exactly who's doing what with any instant messaging during company time, of course. Now, on the security side of things, as I'm sure you are aware, a very easy way to steal information is simply copying and pasting information that can, of course, be done in Instant Messenger. But with some of the more advanced Instant Messengers, think of WhatsApp, Telegram, even Skype, all allow you to attach documentation to these Instant Messengers. So you have the ability to understand exactly what that user may be doing as far as the instant messaging. So you can view the recorded playback, and of course you also have the ability to view the conversation itself if the need arises. So if you had any reason to investigate particular usage, and even the ability to view any attachments that may be sent out, you have the ability to do that directly from here. Printed documents. So the old school way of stealing information is essentially printing that document and physically taking it with you. So this provides you with the ability to, of course, view any documents printed out by the users, as well as view the scanned content of that print. So directly from here, if it allows me to, I can view the actual print of that document. So it doesn't matter if it was a 1-page document, 10-page document, or 100-page document, Teramind will scan every single page of that print and then, of course, provide you with a readable and exportable view. Now, a very useful report on the productivity side of things is Teramind's BI report, so business information reporting. So, of course, in the same way that I had the ability to create many different dashboards, with the BI reports, I can create many different reports that are useful to me. So all of these are custom-made and can, of course, be customized by the company itself, so by the customer themselves. So an example may be something like BI reporting for productivity. So to get understanding based on these widgets of the amount of time logged in by users, how much of idle time is being consumed by the users, so where they're absolutely doing nothing on keyboard and mouse, and based on the scale of the users, users who are most active, users who have logged in the most time, and of course you can investigate any user directly from here as well. So I can see exactly what tasks she was working on, how much time was consumed by those tasks. So here we have emails. She spent about 16 hours throughout this week on emails alone. She spent about 2 hours on social media. And of course, if I want to investigate this user, I can simply just right-click on her name, and then I can investigate the user directly from here. So I can jump into reporting that's unique to Tia. And of course, I have all these reports that are unique to her, and of course, the ability to view the recorded playback. Another example of the BI reports may be something like, let's see here, behavior alerts. So policies which are violated by the users, violation by action, violation by tag. So again, I can get some very crucial information very quickly. And then, of course, you can look on a specific action, maybe something like, just applications and websites. And then from here, I can understand which websites are really consuming most of their time. So news applications seems to be a very common one. So 254 hours collectively throughout this organization between October 28th and November 3rd. And then I can drill down into this and see, which of the users are spending the most time. So once again, Shelby Hunter spent about 26 hours, which seems to be the most. And again, I can investigate her directly from here if needed. Now, of course, the core of the Teramind solution is not just the reporting itself, but the ability to get notifications based on user actions and have Teramind take automated action for you. So you can, of course, have the solution just run the reports. You can review them as necessary, whether it be daily, weekly, or monthly, or you can have Teramind do a lot of the legwork for you by creating alerts and have Teramind take automated action based on those triggers. So directly from here, I can create some policies for Teramind to provide me with automated action. And of course, when building these policies, I can be very specific as far as which users or departments they should be attributed to. So whether it be a single user, multiple users, groups, departments, or company-wide. Now, directly from here, I can utilize any templates offered by Teramind. So you'll notice that we have a wide variety of templates that the customer can utilize out of the box. And they can customize these templates, they can tweak them, they can create policies from scratch. Very easy to do so, and I'll show you some quick examples as well. Now, directly from here, you start with a rule category. So there are 3 major rule categories that you can focus on. First one is agent schedule. So with Teramind, you can define the user schedule and then get immediate notifications based on any deviation in that user schedule. So if it's a user who logged on late, logged on early, maybe logs on his day off, leaves early, leaves late, again, any deviation in user schedule, I can get an immediate alert for and then allow a administrator to take immediate manual action. Activity directly correlates with the reported functionality that Teramind offers. So you'll notice that these triggers here are very similar to that of the reports that Teramind offers. So very simply, anything that Teramind can possibly report on, you can stack a multi-condition policy to. Then the third one there is content sharing, whereby you can specify alerts based on content that the user manipulates. So this falls along the lines of Teramind's data loss prevention functionality. And I'll show you the differences between the two so you can see, what is really considered an activity policy versus how content sharing really takes it to the next level. So for example, say I want to build a policy based on a user. We'll start with 2 different policies. So we'll start with a policy based on security, then we'll start a policy based on productivity. So we'll start with the productivity, that way I can show you security and DLP at the same time. So policy for productivity. Say I want to get some sort of alert based on a user who spends an inordinate amount of time on a website that I deem to be inappropriate. So of course I can specify when the rule should be active. So if it's, say, during regular business hours, after business hours, or all hours, I can be very specific as far as when the rule should be enabled. Now, directly from here, I can start to build the conditions for the policy. So essentially what Teramind should be looking for as far as a trigger. So as far as the web page URL, I can focus on, say, maybe something like Facebook. So if the user is on Facebook, say for maybe 20 minutes straight, 15 minutes straight, I want Teramind to provide me with an alert based on that. So I can create the essentially, let me just type that again. So simply just type in the website, contains Facebook, and then from there I can say if the user is active in Facebook for, say, 15 minutes at a time, send me a notification, and then maybe have Teramind take some automated action. I can say if the user is in Facebook for, say, total time active throughout the day, so maybe 60 minutes throughout the day collectively. So 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, racks up, hits that 60-minute mark, have Teramind send me an alert and maybe take some automated action. I can do this for a productive website, so maybe something like a web-based CRM. So let's say, for example, use something like Salesforce. So if the user is in Salesforce, but he's doing absolutely nothing for, say, 10 minutes straight, so time idle, send me notification, and then have Teramind take automated action. In the same way, I can say collectively. So if total time idle throughout the day, he's sitting in this productive website, but doing absolutely nothing, send me a notification, and then have Teramind take automated action. Automated action will review after I show you, say, another policy. So if we track back, we'll create a policy based on activity. This time we'll use something more along the lines of security. So in this example, I'll focus on 2 different activities, so 2 different triggers. So maybe something like a file transfer activity as well as email activity. So if you go back to the trigger page, so the conditions. So here, the first thing it asks me to do is define the condition for file transfer activity. So I can focus on a particular operation, maybe something like the write operation. User writes something on an external device. So I can specify an external device. I can even say something like if the user writes it on a cloud provider, maybe something like Dropbox. So of course, you can be very specific as far as which one is relevant to you. So for example, at Teramind, we exclusively use Google Drive. So anybody who's using Google Drive typically should be okay. But if somebody's using Dropbox, it may be an issue. So I can very specifically define that. And then from there, so here, once again, I'm creating a trigger for a user who writes something on the Dropbox cloud provider. And then in emails, I'll create a policy for a user who utilizes webmail. So I'll focus on the mail client as being something like Gmail, Live, or Yahoo. I'll specify that the email in question is going to be an outgoing email. So I can specify the mail direction, and then I'll specify that this outgoing email also has an attachment. Now, of course, I can take it steps further. I can say things like if there's particular text in the mail subject or body for Teramind to pick up on that. If the email in question is going to a specific recipient, maybe somebody outside the organization, maybe a competing office, maybe if it's simply going to another webmail address. If the attachment itself is a specific attachment, or if the email is of a particular size. So if a user is trying to send some attachment that's very large, maybe something I want to pick up on. And then from there, Teramind can take automated actions. So I can do things like notifying an administrator. So be very specific as far as which notification goes to which administrators. That way, you're not spamming every single administrator on the Teramind dashboard. So for example, if you tag a particular department and only want that department head to see the notification, you can, of course, do that. I can warn the user. So if it's more about shaping user behavior, I can send the user a warning message, essentially alerting them that the action undertaken may violate corporate policy and they should refrain from doing so. So keep in mind, when monitoring for the insider threat, most of the time, roughly 60% of the time, the action committed by the user is non-malicious. It's not somebody who's really trying to cause damage, but simply somebody who may be unaware, somebody making a critical mistake. So in the same aspect, you can block the action from being executed in real time, as well as provide the user with a message, essentially alerting them as to why this action should not be undertaken. So once again, not everything that the user does is particularly malicious. But at the same time, you may have a scenario that the user in question is trying to be malicious. So apart from just blocking the action in real time and providing a message, you can go as far as locking the user out of their endpoint. So once locked out, they will not be able to log back in unless somebody from their Teramind admin would re-grant them access. So that would fully stop that user in his tracks if, once again, what he's doing is malicious by intent. Now, you also have the ability to specify when Teramind should record the user session. So you may not want to record the user session at all times, but may want to have that recording available if he's in violation of a policy. So that's where the recorded video comes into play. So this acts as a buffer. If the user does not violate any policies, it'll just continue to recycle that recording. But if the user is in violation of a policy, and you can specify how many minutes before or how many minutes after, you can, of course, hold on to that recording without having to record everything that user did for that day. And you can, of course, also take a command line operation based on these triggers. Now, just tracking back to show you the difference of an activity-based policy versus, say, a content-based policy. So remember, when we created this policy, I'm simply focusing on the user who writes anything on Dropbox. So I'm not being very specific as far as what he's writing. I can be specific as far as the file path of the program. But as far as content, I'm not necessarily specifying what content is in that item that he's sharing in Dropbox. Same with the email. So I'm focusing specifically on a user who's utilizing webmail to send an outgoing email with an attachment, but I'm not peering into that attachment to see what's in the attachment. So that's essentially where the content-based policy comes into play. So it peers into the content that's being manipulated and then can safeguard it. So in an example, we'll focus on file transfer activity as well as emails. We'll build the policy in the very same way. And then before we essentially build that policy, it asks us to define what content makes this sensitive. So before I build the policy in that same manner, there's an additional step there, which allows you to define the content. So here we can focus on things like data content, file origin, file properties, or predefined classified data. So in the example, we look at data content. We can specify based on content type, whether it's text, binary, or both. And in this example, we'll do something like text. We can focus on the match type. So if it contains this information, if it one-to-one matches that information, so directly equals that information that I'm trying to flag. If there's a regular expression match, like a sequence of numbers, so if it's a credit card number, account number, social security number, phone number, address, matches list member or equals list member. So here I can do something like contains, and then the value, so essentially what I want to flag. So say, for example, I am a senior employee in an organization, and I want to make sure that nobody is manipulating an information that contains my name. So I can simply type in my name here. And now anytime the user tries to commit the action, so the action of writing something on, say, a cloud provider like Dropbox, sends an outgoing email. So once again, utilizes his webmail to send an outgoing email that has an attachment. Now Teramind is going to peer into these actions. So it's going to peer into the document that's being shared on the cloud provider. It's going to peer into the attachment and look for my name. If it contains my name, once again, Teramind can take the automated action as specified directly from here. Now, as far as automated action goes, you'll notice that there are two different tabs. So there's a simple mode and there's an advanced mode. So the simple mode is the actions that we looked over here. And the advanced mode allows me to create these policies or create these alerts based on thresholds. So as far as the thresholds go, I can focus on hourly, daily, or monthly. So if the user continuously or frequently violates the same policy over and over based on any of these windows, I can get additional alerts or have Teramind take additional action. So for example, we'll focus on daily. So if the user copies information or commits this action that I deem to be inappropriate, but does it once or twice, maybe it's not a big deal. But if the user does the same thing 5 times in the same day, maybe that's where it becomes an issue. So you can, of course, define the frequency. You can define the risk level, and I'll explain why this is important in a moment. And then we can define the type of automated action Teramind should take based on this threshold count. So maybe in the first layer, I can do something like simply warning the user. And then I can add another layer of this threshold. So here I can say, okay, if the user violates this policy now 10 times, maybe I want to elevate the risk level and then have Teramind take more aggressive automated action, maybe something like blocking the action from being executed in real time. Now, of course, you'll notice that I had the ability to specify the risk level, and as users violate policies, all that information will be carried to the risk dashboard. So the risk dashboard will let you know exactly where in the organization you're accumulating risk. You have 2 graphs on top, which can be manipulated by, say, things like violations by date, violations by department, and of course, you can essentially customize that directly from here. And then just below, you have 3 reports that highlights risky users, risky rules, and risky objects. So don't necessarily focus on the word risk here to automatically only infer, say, security-related risk. This can also be based on productivity. So if you're building policies based on productivity, these are users who are violating policies based on that as well. So risky users who are accumulating the most risk, and you can drill down into any user and see exactly what's being attributed to their risk score. Risky rules will highlight the most commonly violated policies in the organization, so exposing the security gap or the productivity gap. And again, here you can drill down into any policy and see who the common denominators are when dealing with that policy violation. And then on the right-hand side, a very useful one is risky objects. So say websites or applications which are commonly used in conjunction with policy violations, thereby providing me with a list of websites and applications that I may want to look towards limiting or blocking action to, which will ultimately prevent that user from causing that risk in the future. So a very interesting one way up top is Slack. So Slack, as I'm sure many of you are aware, is an instant messenger. And this is the riskiest application that's being used in this organization, has the highest risk score. So this means that there are many policies that are utilizing Slack as a trigger and are continuously being violated. So now I can peer into this and see exactly who's violating those policies. I can go back into the alerts that I created or the policies that I created and maybe stack on additional safeguards based on Slack because it seems that this is the riskiest application. So there are many policies that I set up and many users who are violating those policies. Now, from there, you have Teramind's OCR. So the OCR is a optical character recognition feature that focuses on visual access to information as opposed to just a direct action committed by the user. So here you can focus on simple text in the form of an image. You can focus on a regular expression like a sequence of numbers. So whether it be a credit card number, account number, social security number, phone number, address. And again, all that has to happen here is the user has to have visual access to this information. So not tied into keystrokes, not tied into direct user actions, simply visual access to information. So as an example, I typically like to search for things that are relevant in the news. So many of you may have heard that there was a terrorist attack today in Vienna. So if I like, I can search for Vienna and see exactly if any user had any information or viewed the, let me see, maybe I spelled that wrong. So if any user had, right. Let's see if I can use it by terrorism. If any user had any information that had that information on his screen during that day. So from there, I can view the recorded playback. Another very good example would be, say, the elections that's going on today. So if you're aware, today there is an election in the United States, so Trump versus Biden. So if I like, I can search for either name and see if anybody has that information on their screen. So simply searching for Trump. And then I have two options as far as investigating that action or that information. So the first thing on the left-hand side I can do is view the screenshot, so see exactly where on the user session this information was, and Teramind will highlight it for you in yellow. So in this example, it seems that there are many places where Trump's name is mentioned. Let's see if we can find another more concise one. And now anywhere on the user session where this text may be, Teramind will highlight it. So here's another example where Trump's name is mentioned up top over here. It's mentioned in the center over here. Over here. So anywhere where Trump's name is mentioned multiple times, like over here where you see there are multiple fields, it'll essentially highlight a larger box. Let's see if we can find a smaller one. So again, what this is doing, it's letting me know anywhere on that user session where that information was, and Teramind will highlight it for you in yellow. And then, of course, I have the ability to view the recorded playback, so understand exactly how that information got on the user session, what they may have done prior, or what they may have done afterwards. So once again, the camera selector will allow you to view the screenshot. And then if I hit the video icon, I can view the recorded playback to understand exactly how that information got on the user session. What he may have done prior, what he may have done afterwards. So in the example that a user may have manipulated sensitive information, typically when investigating, say, a data breach in the organization, it can take weeks, months, or even years to really get to the bottom line of exactly what may have happened. Whereas a solution like Teramind with the OCR capability can immediately provide you with a report letting you know who had visual access to that data. Through the recording, you can jump directly into the point in time. You can rewind to see what may have done before. You can fast forward to see what you may have done with that information afterwards. So in the scope of really understanding who did what with any information, the OCR report will get you to the bottom line in a matter of seconds, so not even minutes, so to speak. So a very powerful application as far as understanding what happened with sensitive data, as well as who may have been the culprit. So for the most part, that's what Teramind offers under one roof. So once again, it means to understand what users may be doing on with their day, whether it be monitoring for productivity, monitoring for security, and of course, you have the ability to build on that. So whether it's monitoring for the optimization of workforce productivity, you can utilize Teramind's reporting to really understand who's doing what and when. You can utilize the policy enforcement essentially to funnel users into a more productive workflow, whether that be through direct administrator inclusion, or if it's simply through the warnings that Teramind can provide to essentially funnel users into a more productive workflow. And then, of course, on the security side of things, to understand exactly where you may be, where you may have gaps in security, so where you may be exposing yourself to potential risks, and of course, utilize Teramind to create those fences and safeguards to prevent information from being leaked that, of course, can cause damage to the organization itself. So once again, a very powerful solution that follows on the optimization of workforce productivity, as well as the mitigation of insider threats through solutions like session recording, reporting on user actions, policy enforcement, risk analysis, BI reporting, and OCR forensics. So I hope this gives you a better understanding of exactly what it is that Teramind does under one roof. From here, I'd be very happy to take some questions.
Okay, thank you, Eli, for this interesting presentation. The live demo was very informative. I think everyone has no idea what Teramind does. So I see there is one question, and it's from Kestutis. How many employees full-time is required to operate the solution daily?
So it really depends on how many users in their organization are being monitored. So for example, if the sample size is somewhere around 50 to 100 users, I've seen through many conversations with enterprise corporations, they essentially attribute roughly one administrator per about 100 users that may be monitored. So for example, if the organization is less than 100 employees, you should not need more than one administrator. You can, of course, have many administrators as you like. Typically, the common way to set this up is if you have it broken down based on departments. So for example, if you have 5 departments in the organizations, you can attribute, say, 5 different administrators. And then from there, each administrator is responsible for that department. But typically, we find that through the reporting that Teramind offers and through all the controls that you have, one administrator can very successfully manage 100 users in the organization through the tools provided by Teramind.
Okay, thank you. So I see that Kestutis is typing something, maybe another question.
Sure.
If anyone has more questions, write it down. Or you can send it later to our email. One more moment. Okay. So is it possible to use reactive operation check only alerts?
Yes, of course. So that's a very common use case for the solution. So for example, we have customers that, as mentioned, may sit on the reporting daily or weekly. We have customers that don't even open the Teramind solution. They just have it running until something may have happened. So they kind of use it for compliance or as an insurance policy, so to say. So for example, they'll have it running. If somebody stole something, they have a means to actually track back and understand exactly who did what with any information. And then we have customers who just create the alerts themselves. And if nobody is triggering any alerts, they have absolutely no intention of coming into the Teramind dashboard. But if users are violating alerts, they come in for that time frame. They review the alerts that are violated. They review the recording, and then from there they take additional steps. So all depends what the use case is. But of course, you can utilize the solution in many different ways.
Okay, so one more question. Moment. Is GDPR policy is included in which subscription plan?
So for GDPR, we would definitely recommend the DLP solution. So the DLP solution can focus on content-based policies or content-based information, which is very key for GDPR. So for example, in the some of the sample policies that we have based on GDPR regulations are all content-based policies. So if you have a customer whose primary concern is GDPR, making sure that employees aren't committing actions that put them outside of GDPR compliance, I would definitely recommend the DLP package.
Okay. So okay, no more questions for now. If we get any, if we can't answer them, I will send it to you, Eli.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you again
Sure.
for this live demo, and see you next time.
All right, fine. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Everybody stay safe.